My name is Edward Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha. We're an affiliate of the Empty Moon Zen Sangha. I have perhaps the bad habit of setting reading tasks for myself. When I took the job of social sciences bibliographer at Tufts University many years ago, I swore to myself that before I died, I'd read the complete unabridged Golden Bough by James Frazer, all 15 volumes of it. That's yet to happen. But of course, I'm not dead yet. I was told by a short blurb in the New Yorker that Das Kapital, The Interpretation of Dreams and the Origin of Species, were 19th century books that profoundly altered and influenced the 20th century, and were widely cited but hardly ever read. They made my reading list. Some 40 years ago, I bought Volume 1 of Anthony Yu's translation of the Chinese classic Journey to the West, a volume that was lost in various moves I made across country before I could even begin it. This past fall, I corrected that, and have since wormed my way through 3 of the 4 volumes, leaving the monk Xuezhang, the protagonist, somewhere in Western Asia on his way to India to acquire scriptures for the Tang Emperor of China. This is a lightly fictionalized account of an actual journey made in the early 7th century of the Common Era. Lightly, if you accept that monsters and demons menaced the monk, and he was saved by the miraculous powers shown by his companions, in particular the Monkey King. But perhaps more to our point, on his way out of China, deep in Central Asia, Xuezhang was given a miraculous talisman, a wondrous dharani to recite in times of need, the Heart Sutra. You had but to recite the sutra to escape all manner of dangers, something the monk often failed to do, no doubt to advance the dramatic nature of the plot and allow the Monkey King the spotlight. Xuezhang was one of a number of monks who made the arduous journey from China over the Silk Road to India, seeking the sources of Buddhism in the form of Sanskrit and Pali documents that would carry the weight of authenticity for the Buddhists back in China. Interesting then that he would rely on the Heart Sutra for protection, given that there is currently a debate as to whether this heart of the Prajna Paramita Sutras was originally written in Sanskrit, or perhaps written in Chinese and back-translated into Sanskrit to give it an aura of an original document rescued from caverns and guarded by the Nagas, the dragons, until the world was ready for its teaching. But looking back for decades, I viewed the Heart Sutra exactly as a dharani. When you get beginning instruction for Zazen, you're told to keep your eyes half closed and to gaze down at the floor about 6 feet ahead of you, with your eyes half closed, and to keep a soft focus on the floor. It was with that soft focus that I held the Heart Sutra, the same soft focus with which I held as a child the texts of my Christian upbringing, the Lord's Prayer, the Nicene, and the Apostles' Creeds. I knew these and recited them without really paying much attention to the words. So also with the Heart Sutra. It was just something that was deeply comforting, but a spell, simply a dharani. But there's so much more to it. Let's take a look. The sutra isn't long, just some 270 characters or so, but there's a fair amount to unpack. And I'll be coming back to this again over the next few weeks. But let me begin with the first sentence. the heart of the Heart Sutra. Hillel the Elder once laid out the golden rule and noticed that it was the whole of the Torah and that everything else was simply commentary. Just so, I think that the first sentence of the Heart Sutra is exactly that. It is the heart of the Heart Sutra, and what follows is just elaboration. So, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all 5 aggregates are empty and thus relieved all suffering. What more do you need? Here in the translation of Robert Aiken, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practicing deep Prajnaparamita clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Or again, in the reimagining of my own teacher, James Ford, when the heart of compassion walked through the gate of wisdom, she looked into the body of the world and each one of us, seeing that each of us in the world itself is boundless, and with this, all suffering vanished. So, Avalokiteshvara, she, he, who looks down and hears the cries of the world, who better to relieve all suffering? Unlike every other sutra of which I'm aware, this sutra is narrated by someone other than the Buddha. A later, somewhat expanded version of the Heart Sutra corrects this, adding a kind of frame tale that allows the Buddha his voice, perhaps an attempt like the possible back translation into Sanskrit, to add an air of legitimacy. But how could we possibly add anything more to this? The Bodhisattva, and here I invite you all Bodhisattvas, to stand in his or her place and deeply practice Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, our own practice of just sitting down, shutting up, and paying attention. Nothing else, no magic, just this together with Avalokiteshvara. Do this, and you and all beings will clearly see that all 5 aggregates are empty. I like skandhas here, the idea that I am composed of heaps, which is, of course, the translation of skandha, so fits in with what I experience. Odi et amo, as Catullus wrote. I hate and I love. These emotions exist side by side in separate silos of my mind. My rational side watches in amused horror as emotions well up. Seemingly in a different part of my mind, I find memories coming out of drawers that I haven't opened in ages and forgot existed. It's striking that the brain seems to consist of aggregates of cells which create a visual field by assembling it from parts cobbled together. One set of cells reacting to edges, others to motion, others to fields, skandhas, heaps, and all of them empty, all without a core, without an independent nature, because all are dependent on all. All are interwoven. I am the fiction, the narrative thread drawn together from these 5 aggregates, or perhaps these myriad skandhas. Here, much as I love the term empty, boundlessness is a more evocative choice. The hands open wide, accepting and embracing the whole of the universe, and thus relieving, transforming all suffering. Not pain, not war, not oppression, poverty, and disease. These remain, but stripped of the narratives we place on them, the stories we weave around them which stand in our way. With hands open and outstretched, we're free. Thank you.